Okay, welcome to episode 25, Secrets of Top Sellers on Amazon, backed by real data. I'm joined by Dave, and if I pronounce your name incorrectly, Rekuc?
Rekuc, like a microwave, yeah.
Yep. Okay, on Secrets of Top Sellers on Amazon. So let's get started. I'm your host, Mark Fidelman, managing partner of Phonetics Media. Very excited about the show. As a reminder, this is about how-to content. There's not going to be a lot of fluff in this. It's really about the data, what Dave has kind of discovered, and how it can be useful for you, especially if you're an Amazon seller or an e-commerce seller for that matter. Remember to ask questions on the right-hand side with a /Q, and also tweet out the blab on the left-hand side when you want to promote this show to your friends. Okay, so Dave spends a lot of time analyzing Amazon. I think that's fair to say. His primary mission as marketing director of Ripen e-commerce is to turn successful offline retailers into solid online retailers. Amazon then naturally serves as one of the top platforms for that endeavor. So Dave, if you're ready, I've got a first question for you that will kind of set the stage for this whole thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
And that is, can you describe the research that you've done on Amazon?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started getting into this project, you mentioned I've been doing it for a long time. Around August of 2015, I realized, there's a lot of data around Google SEO, the ranking factors, and what drives better correlation with ranking better in the search results. But I really felt like the discussion around Amazon search was very anecdotal. It was like, well, I've seen this happen. Well, I did this. And, so it was very unstructured. Certainly nobody had ever done pulled a large data set and done a deep dive. So the idea behind it was I kind of wanted to pioneer that and go grab a big data set that represented kind of the Amazon marketplace on a whole, not just some anecdotal experience I have with a client in a very small industry or whatever it might be. And then look at a whole bunch of different data points and just see what comes back in terms of correlating with better search results.
You did something like 765,000 search results? How are you able to pull that off? Amazon didn't shut you down when you were tapping the API that hard?
They didn't, no. The API was fine. Amazon will shut you down if you try to scrape things like reviews, which is actually why anybody as a seller, kind of one of the first things they notice, they're like, where's reviews in your study? Well, okay, that's very protected data, and that I actually wasn't able to get. But yeah, the rest of it, they didn't shut down.
Wow. I mean, that's odd. I mean, I can't imagine hitting a search result through APIs that much and not even a phone call.
No, nothing.
All right. So let's move into what the study was about, which was about Amazon SEO. And not a lot of people, think of Amazon and SEO, but I think it's critical according to your research and our own experience. It's very critical in succeeding on Amazon. Yeah. So I just want to list the top 5 factors that you believe matter most for Amazon SEO, and then I'll have a question after that. So number 1 is sales rank, meaning the more you sell, the more you're going to sell, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And then sold by Amazon.com. Does that mean vendor central, or does that mean that you got some kind of FBA relationship?
No, that's exactly what it means. It means a vendor central relationship so that Amazon's buying the goods from you and then they're shipping and selling it.
Okay. Then you say product title and the quality of match. What do you mean? I know what you mean by product title, but the quality of match, what does that mean?
So that's the quality of the keyword match in the product title. So
result.
So I looked at a couple different ways that the keyword matches up with the product title, whether it's exact match, broad match, et cetera. And then I had a method of saying how good was the match, on a scale from 1 to 10 kind of thing. And then based on that, the better matched keywords ranked better.
Okay. And then you say Prime eligibility. That means you've applied for Prime if you're a seller, central seller, or on Vendor Central if you're Prime. There's a bump in improvement with Amazon SEO for that as well. That's number 4.
Yeah. So real quick, 3 roads to Prime. 1 being vendor, 2 being FBA as a seller, and 3 being the new seller prime, which is it's fulfilled from the warehouse as prime.
Okay. And then the discount amount, and I think that means discount off of what, though?
The list price. So that's actually really interesting you bring that up. The list price being a self-defined field as well. So when you upload a product, you specify a list price and you specify the selling price. Now, the list price, a lot of people assume it means MSRP, or they assume it means what it's being sold for elsewhere on the web. But I found a bunch of examples where things were actually being listed at 99% off, like a kitty litter tray that was list price of like $2,600 and selling for the low price of like $9.99, something like that. But yeah, so it's very self-reported.
Okay, so that actually works in your analysis.
The important thing to note with the correlations is it cuts both ways. So it could be that they're ranking well, and products that rank well, there's a lot of competitive sellers for, so it winds up being a discount. So it's important to note that it could be either driving factor for the correlation.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So the top 5 in your mind, in your analysis: sales rank, sold by Amazon.com, product title, prime eligibility, and discount amount. Now, quickly, I want to talk about some of the things that negatively impact SEO.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to talk about 2: third-party FBA, which is fulfillment by Amazon. Why would that have a negative impact on SEO, do you think?
So the interesting thing is that there's really like 3 ways to go when it comes to your relationship with Amazon. You get in the door with a vendor relationship where you're selling to them on a wholesale. Then you've got seller FBA, where it's kind of like that consignment deal where it's your product, but it's sitting in their warehouses and you're paying the fees. And then there's full-blown just seller, I'm shipping and selling it from my warehouse. So the interesting thing is, I don't think it's that FBA negatively affects it. I think it's just that vendor so positively affects it that anything else is a negative, if that makes sense. Because you've got to choose one of these 3. So
yeah.
Vendor is so positive that FBA winds up being a small negative, and then seller with no prime relationship winds up being an even bigger negative.
Could it just be that it just happens to be that those sellers not using FBA aren't that bright? Because I think most people should be using FBA,
right.
And that transfers into their marketing, their listing, their images that they're using. Could it also mean that?
It totally could, yeah. And the other thing that comes up is if it's a really good product that invites multiple sellers, that invites a vendor going direct to Amazon, it's important to note that like the competition is getting centralized over those good products, those highly competitive items, which naturally sell a lot on Amazon. So it does bias it in that sense as well. But yeah, you're definitely right in that.
Okay, and the last item that negatively impacts Amazon SEO is third-party merchant fulfilled. So how is that different than third-party FBA?
So that would be the last relationship that we talked about of the 3. That would be I'm a seller, but I'm shipping it from my warehouse rather than going FBA or having really any kind of prime relationship with Amazon. Okay,
because it just seems like the top Amazon sellers, those selling, and I just learned of this myself. There are Amazon sellers selling over $100 million a year on Amazon, on Amazon, $100 million a year.
Yeah.
They all probably are third-party merchant fulfilled, I would imagine, unless, I don't know if you've done that analysis, but it seems like they ship their own stuff at that volume.
And let me say, here's the caveat. When I say FBA, what I mean is it's seller prime eligible, which actually technically does include some sellers that can ship from their own warehouse and be prime eligible. Because those are the only data points that I can see publicly. I can't see whether they do have a prime relationship. But yeah, I do have a client that when they ship from their warehouse, they're still prime eligible. And that looks like FBA to me, but that's called seller prime. So yeah, the better ones have a seller prime relationship.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that.
Sure.
So let's move on to the next topic. In reading some of your research, you claim being in the wrong category can absolutely kill you. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, totally. So for those out there that are familiar with Google SEO, the word indexed gets thrown around as like a binary thing. You're either indexed or you're not. This page is in Google search or it isn't. With Amazon, it's not so yes or no. It's, are you indexed in this particular category compared to this particular category? So let's say you're selling a video game t-shirt. Is it being listed in the video game category, or is it being listed in the apparel category? And if somebody's looking at apparel, they're not going to find the listing from video games. So it's interesting in the fact that you really can get sectioned off, even if you've done the right things in terms of keywords and sales and advertising. If you're not in the right category, for certain browsers, you can be next to invisible.
So why? I mean, so where should, if you're selling a video game T-shirt, which is what we actually do, where should we be?
Next to the other video game T-shirts.
And so whatever category they've chosen,
go with the flock. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. So is it true that the higher your sales rank on Amazon, the higher your search engine ranking position, called SERP?
Yeah.
So the more you sell, the more you sell?
Yeah, that's right. So the way I like to describe it is it's the, in inbound marketing, you've heard like the positive reinforcement loop. When you're doing good things and it's resulting in good things and good things and good things, and it just keeps compounding, snowballing. So I would think of sales rank in that regard. The more you sell, the more you have potential to rank. And actually, you bring up a really good point. In the study, not only do I find, are you able to rank for that keyword that you were targeting? So let's say I'm selling video game T-shirts. Not only, let's say it's a Zelda T-shirt, one of my favorite games. Not only am I ranking well for Zelda T-shirts, but I might start ranking well for broader search terms. So like maybe Nintendo T-shirts, maybe gaming T-shirts, just, the general phrase. So the more you sell, the more you carry this ability to rank for a wide set of keywords. And that's actually one thing I really kind of dive into in the study.
So why wouldn't I come in with a new product and sell the first, let's say 200 at, maybe it's a $10 T-shirt or $20 T-shirt. Why wouldn't I go in and sell it for 50 cents and really get my sales ranking up and then flip it back $20 later on?
I mean, it's totally, it's a loss leader strategy with Amazon that you could take. But the important thing to know is that that sales rank is looking at some trailing sales history. So at a certain point, you're going to fall off with those 50 cents. Your sales rank is going to be diluted by the fact that you no longer are selling that much. So at a certain point, you'd have to come up with a system that you are spiking your sales every 90 days with, so at which point it's like, man, wouldn't it just be easier to sell a good product and get some reviews on it?
Right. Well, there's a lot of competition though.
There is. Yeah.
I mean, I've seen some crappy products on Amazon rank higher than the more quality products, and they're only slightly less expensive.
Yeah.
Like, so what are they doing? And that's why I got interested when we were connected, because you've actually done this analysis, this deep dive analysis.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to me. So let me ask you this, and I think I know the answer, but I want you to answer. Does Seller Central or Vendor Central work out better for retailers over the long haul?
Well, the hard thing, so the keyword is you used retailers. So retailer being somebody who is not the original brand owner. They're not the manufacturer. They don't have exclusive distribution rights. So that's the big deal. To get a vendor relationship, you're supposed to have exclusive distribution rights in whatever market you're trying to sell it in, US, Canada, Europe, et cetera. So that's usually the preventing factor from, let's say, Walmart coming in. Walmart obviously is not going to play on the Amazon environment. They're trying to do their own thing. But any other retailer to come in, let's say Walgreens, to come in and start selling that brand direct to Amazon, they have to have exclusive distribution rights in order to do it. So a lot of times retailers get pushed into the seller bucket, whether they like it or not. But people that are coming in with their own brands, they actually have a choice. And in the long run, I'm seeing the vendor relationship work out better than the seller relationship.
Really? I mean, the margins are lower, right?
Right.
And the payment terms are 90 days versus 14 days on seller. And then you're dealing with Amazon directly, who may or may not get back to you for 2 or 3 weeks. So how could it possibly be more effective than Seller Central, where you can set your own price, you can put up whatever you want, where there's some restrictions?
No, you definitely lose control, and it isn't a fit for everybody. You know, if you've only got 40% margin sitting in there, you got to think to yourself, can I give Amazon their 20 or 30% or 40%, and then what am I going to make after that? It could be that nothing's left. But if you are sitting there and you have a product that maybe you've white labeled it, you're importing it, whatever, and there are 80% margins at retail value, then, or 70%, something like that, then you're looking at it saying, yeah, there's room for me, there's room for Amazon. And then ultimately, like, that direct relationship with Amazon has a higher ceiling to it. So it has like more room for growth units wise.
Okay. So if you had a choice, and let's say you were white labeling, you would say try for the vendor relationship, because according to the SEO value, it's going to rank higher than on Seller Central.
Yeah, and you know what? Actually, so like when I advise brands, I almost always have them come in with both a vendor and a seller relationship, and I tell them that the seller relationship is to do some of the things that you get the benefit of direct control from. So you can connect some software to automatically solicit reviews after the item ships. Can't do that on the vendor side. You have, a direct relationship with the client. You can actually set the final selling price versus just saying, hey, I hope you sell this for $19.99. So it gives you a couple different things, as well as it gives you, if you stock out on the vendor side, the listing doesn't go offline. You can keep selling it. So I usually recommend both. But the vendor has like I mentioned, the higher ceiling. And actually, one point to mention that's rarely brought up is you do pay co-op marketing fees with any vendor relationship, and that gets you some access to visibility that doesn't exist on the seller side. Yeah. If you'll get retargeted now, like, so those products will show up in retargeting ads. So there are different visibility systems, but in addition to that, you get access to an ad platform that is vendor only. Amazon Marketing Services, it's vendor only. So you're playing in kind of a sandbox that fewer people are in, competition's less. I typically see a much better ROI out of it. So yeah, I do recommend vendor for the higher ceiling if the margins are there.
Okay, but why wouldn't I just do one product on vendor and 50 on seller, which gives me access to the advertising, but more margins with the 49 other products?
Good question. So the advertising, when you configure a certain ad, like let's say it was like a sponsored search, you're supposed to have at least 3 products on the landing page. So in your case, you could still just bump it up to 3 and 3 of your products that are sold as a vendor, and then 47 seller products, and you have access to that vendor. One of the issues there is that you disconnect the ad spend and the revenue, because it's not going to report on the 47 items that you're driving sales on. So you've got to pulse multiple reports behind the scenes. I'm not going to say it's not worth making it work, because that's definitely an interesting approach. And we do, for instance, like some of the products that aren't as high volume, we might not, for some of my clients, we might not ship to Amazon vendor, and we may do exactly what you said. There's no reason for me not to include it on the landing page if it's an item that at the end of the day I'm getting paid on.
Yeah. Okay. Very good answer. So let's discuss stuffing keywords into product titles. Is this good or bad? And just to set the stage for this, we did some Amazon page reviews yesterday. We shot some videos just to educate not only ourselves but some of our customers on a good page versus a bad page. And half of them had title lengths that were 150 characters long. And I know you have something to say about this.
I do. I've got strong feelings about it. And this is one of the data points that I can point to and say, man, I'm glad I went out and got hard data on this rather than relying on the anecdotal evidence that's out there. Because if you look at anything, if you Google Amazon SEO, the prevailing knowledge up until I did my study was you've got 500 characters. We know Amazon looks at this for search rankings. You might as well use them. After looking at the study, I've seen that it's not so clear that people with long title tags are ranking for more search phrases or ranking better for their intended ones or even selling better. In fact, I found that within the top 5% of selling items, so the really, really high sales rank items, I found that most of them are actually skewing under 74 characters, which is the break point for the mobile app starting to truncate it. So I've actually seen Amazon rewarding brevity rather than length.
Okay. So, I mean, just because it's truncated, does that impact whether it's got any SEO value to it?
No. So what I would say to that is the SEO value of a long title tag probably does exist. Like you probably are targeting multiple terms in a long title tag, but the really, really important thing is, what's the first thing you brought up in terms of highest ranking factor that I discovered in my study? Sales rank. So anything that winds up being a secondary factor to sales rank, so click-through rate off of search results, conversion rate, anything that can influence the sales of the product is so strongly weighted that I would recommend not keyword stuffing for the sacrifice of click-through rate. So if you can get, a keyword-rich title that is also enticing that click-through rate, more power to you, go for it. But the really important thing is we do know that sales rank is so critical that if you're sacrificing any of those secondary factors, click-through rate, conversion rate, you're honestly probably shooting yourself in the foot. Okay.
All right. It'd be great if you came up with some kind of visual calculator we can type in all these parameters into, and then
it's
the right strategy, because it ebbs and flows a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to mention it's the breakpoints are 74 characters on the mobile app, 81 on mobile web, and 110 on desktop. So it's like if you're going to miss the 74, maybe keep it inside 81. If you're going to miss the 81, maybe keep it inside 110, and you're getting at least one of the three platforms.
Okay. So you said that organic rankings can be and frequently are indirectly manipulated by ad spend. Is that due to the same thing? You get more sales, and that way your organic rankings go up?
Yeah, great question. So just back to the point of it being like a secondary factor, a secondary influencer of sales rank. Anything that winds up driving sales, moving units, winds up being a secondary organic factor, which advertising is. And, with Google, like we're so used to like this church and state, like paid doesn't influence organic. But with Amazon, they're like, I don't care. If you're selling units, I'm going to rank you better for this term, whether you manage to do it via advertising, organic, driving traffic there yourself, whatever.
Okay. So let's move over to descriptions and features from titles and all the rest of that. How would you advise sellers to optimize their descriptions and features in their listings?
Yeah, good question. So I didn't, in my data, I didn't see a significant difference between a mention in a feature versus a description. So I think that's a really, really important distinction to make, because the features on the page have such a higher prominence when it comes to conversion rate. So the features on the page are right there when you load the page, right at the top, the couple bullets. The description is like 2/3 of the way down the page or whatever it is. It's way down the page. So if I'm not seeing a difference between the two and I need to find a place to put long tail in, I'm going to do it in description every single time. So features to me, I'm going to focus on what do I have to do to win this customer quick. And like sometimes you might be working with electronics, and I give like an example of a nano USB in my study it's actually the keywords they used in their profile is not compatible with Raspberry Pi, but it actually ranked for Raspberry Pi USB just because of the mention. But I do think it is actually important to, if you have a product that relies on those integrations or whatever it is, I think it is key to call those out early on in features, because that is a selling point. But if you want to hit like a long tail of like, I want to list like 100 things that this is compatible with, don't do that in features. Do that down in the description where it's 2/3 of the way down the page. Like you've got your first impression in, they've gotten the major selling points. So that's the way I've started looking at features and description after doing the study.
What does this scenario make sense to you? If we were to rank pretty highly on Amazon for long description, long tail words, either in the title or in the description, or probably both. Long tail, not T-shirt, but
right.
Red tie-dyed T-shirt from Michigan or something. I'm making.
Yeah.
And we own the number 1 or number 2 search spot for those terms. Could we then start ranking for T-shirt eventually over time, because we've sales ranked for those long tail words and we've SEO ranked for them?Uld that somehow transfer over to T-shirt once we started, adding those tags?
Yeah, you know what? Totally. And on top of it, even if you were the big guy who was coming in and was like, I've got the T-shirt, I've got the, Michigan made T-shirt or whatever it is. Let's go back to Zelda T-shirt, keep Zelda relevant. I've got the Zelda T-shirt. It's what's hot online right now. It's going to sell. For you to neglect the long tail means that, we found time and again with Google, the long tail, you can add 20% just by focusing on the long tail. So if you neglect that, you're down 20% on the sales, which means that you're now only really fulfilling 80% of your ranking potential instead of, the full 100. So even if you are the big guy, I think that a strong focus and strong paying attention to the long tail is really important for driving the sales rank, even on the head terms, or the ranking on the head terms.
Okay, and we got a final question. This from the audience: are there any other alternative platforms to Amazon that you've used that you've liked? And first of all, I think a multi-channel approach is a smart approach, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, so I would definitely say that Amazon isn't for everyone, and especially with I call it like the commoditization of distribution. Like it's getting more and more. If you're selling the same product as everyone else, the service of selling it is just a commodity, and the margins are 0 to none. They're disappearing. So I do understand where the question's coming from. In terms of marketplaces, if that's what you're looking for, Amazon still does hold a huge amount of the market share. A lot of sellers can still find a lot of success on eBay. It's a very different marketplace, but you can still find a lot of success on eBay. And then, the other major one is direct to consumer with your website. I talked to a brand that they went strictly pure play direct to consumer on their site. They controlled the experience. They made it more social. On Amazon, you basically have a product detail page to make the sale in. If your product doesn't lend itself to closing on a single page with 5 bulleted features and a long description and a couple images, then you know what? It's probably not going to sell on Amazon. You've got to go establish that sales somewhere else where you can make that right presentation. So I definitely would say it's not a one size fits all, but being the giant that it is, I think it should be at least considered in e-commerce conversations.
So outside of Amazon, eBay, I think I saw another research study that said the same thing, that a lot of sellers on Amazon are also selling on eBay, and that kind of surprised me. Because, I think of eBay as a more of a place to buy used goods, but of course you can buy new goods on eBay. Is there anything besides eBay that you'd recommend right now, like Etsy or any of those other places?
Well, actually, you bring up a great point. Etsy is much more of a niche marketplace for that, niche product, like that handcrafted, those like one-off type things. And Etsy functions a lot differently. Like I had a client come to me that they're constantly pumping out new lines, and they're turning over product every 3 months. And then, it's just, we have 10 units of this, we sell through it, and then that's it. And I said, well, that's a horrible fit for Amazon, because you need 100 units to build up your sales rank, to build up reviews, to gain the momentum. You're this little snowball and you're not letting it pick up pace. So that's a bad fit for Amazon. Don't do that. eBay, much better fit for one-off transactional type sales. Etsy, a good fit for niche. There are other marketplaces that fit like the I'm going to push out a data feed and sell, my catalog of 1,000 products on multiple different marketplaces. So you've got Sears Marketplace, Rakuten, Jet.com is rising in prevalence for like the home goods and the like the consumer packed goods kind of space. If you sell laundry detergent, great place for you to be. But all of them much less volume than Amazon. So the discussion very often floats back to Amazon because a lot of people look at volume. But I would say that it's totally possible to go to Rakuten or Sears or, one of these other marketplaces, find your niche and move some units, and there may be opportunity on those marketplaces that doesn't exist on Amazon because of the volume of Amazon.
Okay. Great. I mean, I didn't even realize you were on Sears. Does that have to be something Sears would eventually sell, or could you sell virtually anything on the Sears.com?
Sears does have a marketplace as well. So like you could join as like a seller and actually sell on Sears. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, any volume there?
No. I mean, I don't want to say no volume, like people could pick it up. They can make a living. People could make a business off of it, but it's always way lower on the line items of discussions with clients just because I have nobody where it's like, oh yeah, it's rivaling Amazon now. It's, it's always doing a 10th, a 20th of what Amazon's doing, that kind of thing.
And one last follow-up. So we mentioned Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Sears. I know there's Rakuten. How difficult is it to place your product in each of these marketplaces? Can you use the same template or format, or do you have to have a different strategy for each one of those platforms?
I mean, so there's definitely different software companies that can help you feed this if you're trying to do it in mass. So like the entry level one I would call Go Data Feed. So they help you feed the different like comparison shopping engines, Google Shopping, Bing Shopping, eBay Commerce Network. But they also have marketplace connections where they can help you say like you work with one core set of data and then you push out a version to eBay and then Amazon, et cetera. But it requires some customization to each. They want their fields a little bit different. They all have different categorization. So I wouldn't say it's one size fits all, but you can use one base set of data and then customize it or tweak it for each of those. Okay.
And is there one in particular that you really like that would push it out to all the different platforms? Anything that you like in particular?
I mean, Channel Advisor is like the big guy in the industry, but the fees will usually settle into at least being $20,000 in fees. So unless you're moving a couple $1 million on marketplaces, like it doesn't make any sense for you. But I would say honestly, I really like Go Data Feed as like an entry level SaaS. Like I think it's $99 a month to feed it to Amazon. They'll connect to Shopify, Magento, Volusion, a couple of those, out of the box stores. And I actually think Shopify is coming out with a direct integration to Amazon as well. So yeah, I would look. GoData Feed's a good, reasonably priced SaaS solution.
Okay, yeah, and Shopify already has a link to Amazon FBA, by the way, so you could just ship from Amazon when it's sold through Shopify.
Yeah. What they're developing is the direct link to like create the listings on Amazon.
Just repeat it. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, David, that's all the time we have. This was fantastic. I'm going to put in the show notes on YouTube and on Forbes where they could find your research study, because I thought not only was it really well done, but the way you packaged it on your website, I thought was easy to follow, easy to click through some of the things that you really might be interested, like we are. So again, thank you, and look forward to speaking to you again.
Great. Thank you very much.